Hello everyone. In the last video of React documentation, we have seen some of the example of React forms and how to use it. We have write two components, for one for functional component and another for class component to see the example of React form. And we have created this sample form where we have this on change of anything, it change the value in the field, and if we submit we can see the field here, value here. We have seen different types of form like checkbox, date field, then drop down as well. In this video of React tutorial of that React documentation, we're gonna see some of the concept which is very important in React.js in lifting state up. So it's not a something programming or React.js specific video. This is something a convention of our React.js. So what does it mean is like often we have multiple component. For example, here if you notice that we have multiple input box, and recommendation is if we have multiple same type of component or different type of component, we always try to keep the same type of component at the same level, or you try to make less level up. So what I mean is like we try to keep closer of those components which are similar. In that way, when we do any changes on the React state, it doesn't impact multiple state, because impacting on the multiple state will gonna delay the process. So here is one of example we can see, right, where we have like temperature conversion from Celsius to Fahrenheit, or Fahrenheit to Celsius. So we can see that we have this boiling verdict where if the Celsius temperature is greater than 100, then the water would boil, otherwise water would not boil. And we have this calculator here where we have this input field. On change of this input field, it passed the Celsius temperature in this temperature boiling verdict, and then based on that the temperature it shows that. And here on the adding a second element where we have the previously, if you notice that here we have the calculator as a normal temperature as a Celsius. Here we have this temperature as a Fahrenheit. So here, so we pass the scalar name .c and scalar name .f for Fahrenheit, and then we merge this together too as a temperature input, and we pass the type of temperature input. And if you notice here the temperature input, we get the state where the temperature, and on change of the input, anything we change, we scale the name based on the name here, and then based on that we set the value of the temperature here. And now we have two components, so we need to do the conversion, right? So for Celsius, the conversion mathematical logic is this: you have the Fahrenheit minus 32 multiplied by 5 by 9, whereby in the Fahrenheit you do the opposite, Celsius multiplied by 9 by 5 plus 32, which is a mathematical equation. You can check on internet for more details why we have this 32 degrees Celsius. And when we have this conversion, we try to get the type of temperature, the temperature and the convert type. So if the value is null or empty, we set it return it empty value. If we have some value, we convert the value into output, which we have this convert, and then we round it up with some value, mathematical value, and we return the converted string. And here is the place where we have the state. So previously, if you notice, we had two component state. One is temperature input and another temperature input, where we have this, all the state are here. So the logic is we move out the state, these two together, into a single state, where we can see here we all the states are in a single state. Instead of this, we make the state as a singular. So now we will have this temperature input is removed and received in a props instead of state. And here, if you notice, in the calculator has the all the state. So what does it mean is, if we have multiple input, one input here and one input there, what we did is, like, we move out the state from this component to this root component, and we send the state as a props here itself, the temperature. And then we have this verdict, where it shows that the water will gonna boil or not. So I hope this is useful. We can write out the, let's write the code and see how it works. So writing this code is very easy. We just have to have this temperature input, these two input first, and then we have this boiling verdict, these two, and we can have this state as well. So let's do it. First we need this input, boiling temperature input. We can create a component. Let's, and then for the temperature input, if you notice that we have this class component, and on change of the event, we handle the change, and we receive the change event from the props as well, and we set the value. So we can copy the whole thing here. So now we need to import the React component, which we can do. We can export this. And if you notice that we have a exception here, error here, skill name is not defined. We can copy this value from here itself. We had this on here. So our this component is done. So let's revise what it does. So we have this temperature input, and we have this props value, which we receive from the previous state whereby we send, and with this handle change, which is bind to this handle change, on change. And once it change, we receive this on temperature change from the props as well, and we set the value whatever we put in this input value. And this is just a legend to say that either you enter into Celsius or Fahrenheit. And then we, in the main method for us, I'm sorry, in the main class on the calculator, we have this calculator here, and we have this boiling verdict. Let's do this first, the boiling verdict. So let's create the component, and for us we have this boiling verdict here. We import the React, so we have this functional component of this. and then we have this calculator. Let's copy this also and create this calculator component. So in the calculator component we also copy the whole thing, and then we import the React component.
It's 10 o'clock.
Default calculator. So now if you notice, we have to import this temperature input we just now created. So we can say temperature input. Okay, import temperature input from temperature input. We also need to import this verdict. Import boiling verdict. Now we need to also convert this try convert, this method itself, which we can see here. We can define on top, and then we have this 2 Celsius. Let's see what is this 2 Celsius. It's a function, I believe. Yep, so these are the function we have. So let's see how it works. So we have this to convert function where it convert the temperature, and we have this converter function which we pass here, and we have these two function, if Celsius or Fahrenheit. Based on that we do the conversion, and we have these two input handler for this two, and we have this boiling verdict. Okay, and we pass always the Celsius temperature. So whatever we put as a Fahrenheit or Celsius, based on the input we pass here, we set the Celsius temperature to this, and if we have set state, if we pass the Fahrenheit temperature, we set the state of scale of this temperature. And on the render method, if you notice that we pass the handle Fahrenheit changes and the handle Celsius changes into this method itself. So whenever they change anything, we set the state as well, and we pass always that we set the state as temperature and also the scale as a Celsius always by default. And now if we import this into our main method, we can say converter calculator. Now if we open our React page, we see that we have our converter page where we can pass either the Celsius temperature or we pass the Fahrenheit. So let's say we pass 100 degrees Celsius is equal to 212 degree Fahrenheit, which water will boil. But if we say 10 degree, it says that water will not boil. And if we notice in the body, when we change something, it changes only in the all the state here, and it changes only the value which here changes, right? So it doesn't change when we don't have any changes. So let's do a quick recap what we have done. So we have these two input changes bind method, whereby we have this local state as temperature and scale as a Celsius, and we have this two method, where one is for when there is a Celsius changes, and one is on Fahrenheit changes, where we in the method we pass the temperature, and whenever we have this temperature input, where we pass this handle changes as a method, and also the temperature as a Celsius. Here we pass the temperature as a Fahrenheit on the second input, and we scale this as F. So whenever anything changes on here, what we do is we change the temperature value, which is the method we pass from the state itself. So whenever there is a Fahrenheit changes, we send the Fahrenheit. Whenever there is a Celsius changes, we Celsius. And this value set the state to this value, and on change of this state value, what we do is like we pass the Celsius temperature to predict that if there is a changes on the Celsius temperature, and if it's more than 100, we said that water will boil, which is here. And here we do the calculation of the temperature. So how it works is like anytime this anything changes on this value, it will render here as well. So we can try it out in a log. If you notice, this value of conversion, every time we change a value in here, it will log as well. So always remember this render component inside whatever is available. If ever any value of this got changed, it will render the whole state as well. Whereby if we change this change value, what it will do, it will take the state from scalar. What is the scale? So for example, if we change the Celsius, it will take a C as a scale, because on the changes we set the scale as C, and the temperature will gonna take the current temperature which we set here. So if you notice, we set the temperature as well, which will gonna this temperature and scales, and then it will convert both Celsius and Fahrenheit temperature. So if scale equal to F, then it will try convert this and pass the to Celsius, and if it's equal to Celsius, then it will try to convert into Fahrenheit, and it will store these two value, and it will pass these two value into this temperature, which this temperature we're gonna access from these props. If you notice here, it's accessing from props. So I hope this video will be really useful. We cover a lot of things in this video what we have learned in our previous video. We have seen the input field example, we have also seen the state example, props example, on change example of the input event. We have also seen some of the handler, input handler. We have also seen some of the function, how to create a normal function in React and we pass a method inside another method. We have seen these two small utility function, and I hope this is useful. We also here seen the conditional operator. Here if the scale is F, then if you see, we convert everything to Celsius, otherwise we send that temperature. So I hope this is useful, and see you on the next video. Bye.